Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Radio Pi. I'm Nick D'Orazio from OSIsoft, which is now part of AVEVA. Today we're going to be talking about the use of sensor-based data in discrete manufacturing. Weber Metals is a major supplier of aluminum and titanium forgings to the aerospace industry. They're located in Southern California, and among the thousands of things that they need to manage with sensor-based data is a 60,000-ton forging press that is the world's largest private investment in aerospace metal forging. Joining us from Weber is the man who's responsible for creating a centralized data infrastructure to optimize production. That's automation engineer David Mitchell. Hello, David.
Hello.
And also joining us today is co-host Shawn Upson. He's the system engineer who consulted with David as he planned the project out. So he's going to be able to tell us about the project and about the just how he worked with David to get answers about how to put together the design. Hello, Shawn.
Hey, happy to be here. Happy to talk about Pi with you all.
Great. David, can you go ahead and start by just telling us a little bit about what you do at Weber?
Well, I do a number of things right now. I started out working with the SAP and MES team because I'm familiar with databases. I'm familiar with both, traditional SQL databases, and I've also developed business applications. So when I started out at Weber, I was on more of the IT data side, and now I'm in the maintenance, equipment, engineering side of things. So I'm really trying to be the bridge between the shop floor and all the data from the shop floor and our centralized databases and centralized enterprise networks and such to bring all the data on the plant floor up to the people.
Okay, great.
That are running the show.
So one of the things that I'm fascinated about this topic is, you telling the standard kind of getting rid of silos of information story that we hear from so many people. Can you describe to me some of the issues that you had before you started putting this project together?
Well, being from the IT side and previous to really doing more of the IT business application stuff, I was a controls engineer. Actually come from electrical engineering background. I got into controls and I got into software. So I had seen a lot of plant floors and seen what good was and seen what not so good is as far as sensor-based data. And so I come to the company knowing about the challenges of sensor-based data. And when I got there, I looked in and saw there's at least 8 silos of data, and I'm like, hey. And then they're trying to add another one and use MES, but I was like, no, this is not the right way, because row column data for time series data just really you're trying to fit one thing into another thing. They don't really doesn't really work that well.
No, I know we talk about that all the time. It's great for transactional processing because you get a credit card, you want to back out. It's great for that, but time series not so much optimized.
No,
for that.
It's not so good. It's not optimized. It's clunky. With the time series stuff, you have the swinging door algorithm. You can save much space on the hard drive, which people might not care so much about, but what they do care about how fast it gets up to you. So.
Okay, so it sounds like the story of situational awareness. Stuff in a variety of places. Why was it difficult to pull all that stuff together? I mean, if I understand correctly, you had a real grab bag.
Yeah, well, most people don't understand this stuff. Most people don't get the difference between a relational database and a time series database. Took a number of talks with people to get them to understand the benefits and how we can do things better than we're doing, and how these data silos are limiting us. And
great. Well, let's
get everything in one spot would be way better.
Okay. So now, with that the situation, and you're looking for situational awareness in a single structure, where did you start? How did you get started? And was Shawn involved at that point?
Well, we started with I started explaining to people what we're doing, we could do better. And then really what happened is we come up with a new need. Hey, we need to record data on this. We need data on this. And proposals were put up for some more data silos, and I was able to say, no, there's a better way, and was able to get it put in. The other project is 60K area. That is the new stuff. We had been doing some data recording with the SCADA system, the Siemens SCADA system. The historian in that was still row column data. What was hard was for us to get that data out in the format that was required to get. We're working on getting a power rebate. So we need a certain format, and we couldn't get it to be in that format. With Pi, it wasn't that hard. Because it's set up to get in to pretty much any format. I don't know a format that we need to get that we can't get it in as far as you can slice it however you want it.
Right. Shawn, can you describe what's it like? What's the process you go through when you're working with a customer like David and trying to define what their system should look like?
Yeah, sure. The first thing really is to understand what David's going through. I want to listen to him. I want to hear everything that he just said. I want to hear what all of his problems are. I want to hear where he's at right now, and I really want to understand where he wants to go with it. So when I was, initially talking to and listening to David, and getting really excited about, just his goals of breaking down all these different silos, and once we hear all those things, then I can start asking some questions into the details. What are the different systems? What protocols do those systems speak? Where are they in the network? And we can really start to get in there and understand more of what's going on and what is going to be required for the system at the end of the day to accomplish that. But the other thing I was also thinking of when we were initially talking about this and hearing David's goals, I was very, very excited about that, knew that we could do that, but also felt like there's a bit more that we could pull out of it within that scope at the same time. And I think, David, as we started to work, your perception of what Pi was changed from the beginning towards the end. Could you describe that process and how that worked?
Yeah, it had, because I had previously worked with Pi because we needed it in the facility that I was in, and it was very successful. Then I got doing other stuff. I kind of got out of the historian world for a bit, more into business application stuff. And when I came back, I was like, well, Pi is what we need here, guys. And so when I started, I knew it was a historian. I knew what it could do as far as that. And so there was either I didn't know what the older system could do, or there was many new improvements in the last 10 or 15 years since I've been introduced to it. And yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. I've noticed with the asset framework, with connections to relational databases, and mixing both time series data and relational data, having event frames and notifications, so you can, it's not just a historian. Although that's the main thing, big thing that we need. We must do historian stuff, but it can do a lot more. It's a lot more flexible, a lot more powerful than the majority, in fact, any of the other systems that we have on the shop floor for this type of stuff.
Okay, and we'll get into some of those other things.
So, David, which specific silos so far have you been able to combine within that 60K press area?
Well, the first one, I've duplicated everything that's on the Siemens SCADA the device.
Yeah, I think there were the bag houses as well.
Yeah, so the bag houses were a new system. So that was T0 for data recording. It wasn't really replacing something, but what we did do was prevent another silo. Right now I'm working on duplicating everything that is on the, we have an ignition system. The thing with that is it works. It's in row column data, so it's not real efficient. And while it meets requirements for many of the things that we do, it's nobody knows how it's currently at the company how to program it. Yeah, so we'd like to get rid of that, and hopefully hopefully someday not too far in the future, we can backfill all the data from that database into the Pi system is what I'd like to do, to fully decommission some stuff and still retain the historical data. And I think that's possible too.
Okay, great. Hey, so David, can you describe how having better visibility into, just being able to trend and see things in more detail has been able to improve things?
Yeah, well, so one of the things that we did during commissioning at the bag houses, I was able to see how it was running and see how the PID systems were working, so everything was working, and noticed a few things that weren't working right. It helped the commissioning of stuff just to start out.
Okay.
So
anything with troubleshooting or maintenance?
Oh yeah, so I use it for maintenance all the time. I mean, you can put whatever in there that you're trying to do. If you're trying to tune a PID, you can put your not only the result, you can actually record maybe the integral windup inside of the PID that could potentially help you tune your PID. So you can do a lot of these things with startup, with improving systems, maintaining systems. And then of course there's a quality aspect, which I typically serve up data to others so that they can see that. And I help the quality people by giving them the data. I help myself with the maintenance stuff.
Okay. You're the human server.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so now you're in discrete manufacturing, and but you've actually taken like a page out of the folks who are doing batches by dividing your discrete manufacturing into events, comparing those events. Can you tell me what's going on with that?
Yeah. So I create one. Well, Shawn actually showed me, hey, part of when we were building this thing, he says, why don't I just show you like kind of the art of the possible? And there is a system that he had access to, the corporate systems for testing and display and showing stuff and training, I believe. So there's all sorts of different stuff in that. He was showing me a lot of it, what just was possible. I had some ideas, and I made a system that can use event frames to know when the press has gone into auto mode, and I'm also recording the part number and shop order and other information. So we've integrated it a bit with the MES system, so that when somebody at the press says, "Hey, I'm going to clock this job in," that job, the data from the job, will go to the PLC, and I will read it with the Pi system. So now I not only have the process data, I have the data about the process data, like part number, shop order, alloy, some other things like that. So what you can do now is say, show me all of the automatic modes, and I programmed a bit to go true during the time when auto mode started and stopped. I programmed an event to go true and false, and I was able to use that to compare runs for different type of products and line everything up with each other, so that you can see the press curves overlaid on each other for different product lines, and you can see the variation that does or doesn't happen in a product line to try to discern,
No,
better.
That sounds
you
exactly
like a golden batch.
Yeah,
type thing.
the golden batch, that's exactly what our batch customers are doing. So what's it like? I mean, with that golden batch, does that help you better quality, better end product?
Yeah, so some things are really need to be really precise that we do. Like when we're doing titanium engine parts,
Right.
there are a lot of parameters that have to be just right, or you're not going to make that part right. We're just going to throw it away. We're just like, go back to, all that, whatever you did, it didn't work. You keep on doing it until you get the right part. So,
okay, and these are not lengthy processes, right? This is like 5 or 6 seconds or 10 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, well, so Yes and no.
Okay.
So yes, the very critical thing happens in 5 or 6 seconds, but you have a very hot part coming in that has to come in from an oven, and there's a manipulator that grabs the part and puts it in the oven. So there's minutes in between this 5-second event, right? You have to get an old part out, prep the dies, put a new part in that's at a certain temperature, get it seated right, and then you press. So there's a big going on to do this stuff. Um, so if
And I
you were to
imagine
look at the whole
variability within
data,
that. Yeah.
yeah. If you look at the whole data, it's you'll look at an hour's worth of data, but really what you really care about is mostly happening. There's about a minute of that's the gold, right, of the hour data, because the pressing event for these things are usually pretty quick. Um, you have a machine that's jogging down to get close to it, but now it's really what you care about is when the die hits the metal until it gets to the end. So that's the curve that you want of the whole maybe 5 minutes to get one part. There's 5 seconds of that you're really looking at.
Yeah. David, I remember the first time when we brought that screen up that had all the different events of the 60,000 ton press, pressing down on your parts, just the 10 seconds and some values going over it, and when you're looking at that, your eyes were just lighting up a bit. You don't know, this is great. Like
this is cool.
Our metallurgists need to see this right now.
One small
cool.
victory.
Cool.
So that's
what
I work
and then
for.
After that, you're like, can I get this data more often? Can I make this better?
Yeah. So I'm still looking at what's the next thing,
Hey, so we hear a lot of customers talking about energy management. Are you doing anything with energy management now?
Yes. Well, kind of. The project I'm actually was working on today, I had a small victory. We're working on getting a rebate from Southern California Edison. With the new press, we put a good amount of money in it to make it extra energy efficient with very modern VFDs and algorithms that spin motors down and try to reduce the power consumption of giant power-hungry press. So the modern technology should be much more energy efficient than the older stuff. So if we can prove that we've done it, then we get some rebates.
It's always fascinating to talk to people who've had to do some of the proselytizing or some of the popularizing of a system across an organization. And if I understand correctly, you had some really good milestones with that. What was it like working with this, showing it to different people, gaining acceptance? What was that like for you?
Well, it takes some work because you have to go around and talk to people. You're not just sitting at your desk. A lot of it was going around just showing people this. Hey, this is what we're doing now. This is the better way to do the stuff and stuff like that, or just explaining to people. Most people don't even really want to hear what the difference between a time series database and a relational database is. They just don't. They don't care.
Yeah, well, what kind of response did you get when you showed, what the capabilities were?
Oh yeah, everyone liked it. So everyone's liked it. Particularly the people who deal with the ovens and stuff. It's a much easier system to use than the other systems we have.
Right.
As for an end user perspective, just for the tools that are available for reporting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One question we always ask is, has this helped with any larger corporate goals? A lot of folks are big into sustainability, or they're looking for, like I said, to move into condition-based maintenance or something like that. How about yourselves? Did this align well to anything that you guys had been planning? Some folks even have whole digital.
Basically the reasons we initially did it is working for all of those. And I would like to take out some of these older systems and centralize all the data into one spot instead of many different spots, be maintaining less stuff, have less licenses for different products, have people, don't need to know so many things, less things to maintain. It's kind of where I want to head. Also, the ability to be able to relate data from one thing to another if it's all in one spot, you can do it much easier.
Okay. So, like a lot of engineers, do you have a piece of broken gear or like a fried motherboard or something that you keep on your desk as a memento?
Well, I've got an old XP laptop on my desk right now. It's not a memento. I want to get it off because I'm programming a 20-year-old HMI today. So it only runs on XP, and this machine's about to die. So that's what I have on my desk right now.
Goodness gracious. So you're working with an XP so you can...
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. I was
Amazing.
forced to. It's so
Okay.
sad.
Well, speaking of programming, so what's the coolest, either the coolest code you've ever written or the coolest calculation you've ever done?
Oh, I'm thinking of that. I'll tell you what, it was in my previous job, I programmed the control system to do a fast start for an extrusion process that saved us a lot of time. The other thing I did is for a stretching process, I was able to program the machine to automatically stretch. If you really have to get into physics and stuff of how this worked, but I was able to do very fast data calculations and understand when different stresses have met a certain point, and it wasn't just distance. So that really revolutionized a stretching area, which was very important for us. So that was
Very
was
cool.
a pretty cool one.
Oh, very cool.
I
Very cool.
felt accomplished doing that. I felt smart. I like feeling smart, so I felt really smart. Like no one else could have figured this out. I'm so awesome. So yeah,
I love that feeling.
It's great to save the day.
yeah.
So I haven't seen an operating area yet that didn't have some weird animal that's always getting into the works. What kind of animals torment your folks?
Well, we've got a bunch of cats. There's a bunch of cats at Weber Metals that we've just let be there.
Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been talking to David Mitchell from Weber Metals. Thanks again, David.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, David.
We've also had as our co-host Shawn Upson from AVEVA. Thanks again, Shawn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you again, everybody. We'll see you in another 2 weeks, and take care. Bye-bye.